Hello YouTube. Special thanks to Nora for having me on your channel here, and thank you as well for the work that you have been doing. Got a chance to see some of your work here and amazing work. So thank you so much for having me on this interview. And I do have some questions here, of course, sent to me by Nora that I'll be using as a guide for this conversation that I want to have with you. But I'm excited, and I pray that you and I will be blessed from this conversation, the Spirit of God being our help in having this conversation and leading us through and through. So without any further delay, I'll just use that word. Let us get right into the chat. So who is Ndashi? I think that's a good place to start. I am a child of God. I think that's a foundation for everything. And out of that beautiful relationship of being a child of God, being a son of God, I have been graced in various ways that enable me to do purpose. So I'm an author. I've written 5 books, and I want to add and counting. So it's been such a privilege to be able to do that and communicate to different audiences through that channel. And so again, I'm a leadership and personal development trainer. Something that I'm excited about. I love to work with people's potential and just see someone who didn't even know that they had something just explode themselves and begin to do things that they never even thought they would be able to. So I love to do that. I'm a minister of the gospel. That's a main part of my life. I just love to go out and minister in various ways and on various platforms as the Lord enables me to. So that would be around the summary of who I am. I was trained as a chemical engineer from the Copperbelt University, but most of my time is spent in leadership and personal development training, in ministry, and graphics and design. So that's a little bit about me and what I do. Yeah, I hope that covers it. If not, Google me. Yeah, I'm kidding, but anyway, let's get through to let's get to the next question, and just maybe see where we go with this. How has been my journey so far since knowing Christ? It's been an interesting journey. I think I've seen the ups and I've seen the downs of my journey. The ups of just being in this beautiful relationship and pursuing the Lord with all my passion, and saving people and saving God in different ways. So my journey has had such amazing highs. I think early on, just by the grace of God, I wrote my first book in 2015. I got saved in 2012. I wrote my first book in 2015, but before that, it was beautiful right from 2012, just getting to do ministry at a scale that enabled us to introduce spoken word poetry and events in Mufulira, that's my hometown, and just using that as a platform for so many people to begin to encounter the Lord in different ways. So the journey has been beautiful, going on to university and becoming chairperson of one of the biggest fellowships at CBU, that's the Copperbelt University, Chi Alpha, and getting to be in leadership from first year, second year, transitioning to be the chairperson all the way through until my 5th year, gave me such an opportunity to pursue God at such a different level, because of course I need to depend on God. I'm coming into university and I'm coming into being chairperson, and I'm just barely 2 years into my Christian faith. But then I think I had people that were such good models and really gave me the hunger, like inspired the hunger for me to pursue God at that level. So I think that is something that I have seen has been was a positive for me early on. And I did have my struggles, getting saved, and from the walls that I came from. Probably I'll share that. I think I saw a question like that, where I came from, the world that I came from, and getting to know the Lord. And I had my struggles with religiousness. I had my struggles with being judgmental. I had my struggles with not knowing what the next step is going to look like or how to live as a novice Christian, right? I didn't like worship. That's such a paradox if you hung around my life now and just how much emphasis I have on worship. But I didn't like it. I never used to enjoy it. I felt like, what's this boring thing that we consistently have to sit through or do? But the Lord's intent is to make it one of the central pieces of my life message. It's been an interesting journey. I've seen what it means to do ministry with God and to do ministry without God. I've tried it both ways, and I have found that the best version of me is always the version that is with God. So, in a nutshell, that has been sort of my journey with the Lord so far, and it's been amazing. Okay, how did I come to know Christ? How I came to know Christ is way back in 2012. Okay, and sorry, Nora, I know I flipped your questions, but yeah, it's way back in 2012. So I got saved in my room. I was so given to music. I was a rapper. Yeah. In case you didn't know, now you know something new. So I was a rapper, and I was so given to music. I was so given to hip hop music, and to be specific, and also like I was heavily influenced by the Western culture. So I would, write music. I would, expose myself to study hip hop, to study music. I was part of this online group on Facebook where we would do online battles, and sometimes you would wake up at 02 because it was like an international platform, and so we would battle rap via text, of course, with people from Angola, with people from Nigeria, and somebody would come and judge. And some of those, battles looked like being as nasty as it can possibly be. So you can imagine like my speech, how it was, my kind of thinking at that point. Used to curse a lot in those battles, but also even just with around my friends, I realized that I just couldn't finish a sentence without cursing. So I think music was such a stronghold for me, and it's one of the reasons that whenever I'm in church and there would be an altar call, I would constantly think about what it would mean for me to let go of that music, and so I would just step back. Yeah, but in February of 2012, I remember this one night I couldn't sleep because even though during the day I would spend so much time thinking about rhymes, thinking about metaphors, and all of these things that would make me good in my rap. And of course I was recording as well. I had a number of friends around me, and we would record this music. So during the day you would spend so much time thinking about music, writing music, and all these rap songs. But at night, that one night, it became like torment. I couldn't sleep. I just kept hearing these lyrics, so to say. But instead of enjoying them, they became tormenting. They became tormenting. And at the same time, I was at the phase where I was beginning to second guess some of the things that we were talking about. I have no idea what scripture it is that I read, but even though I was so given to the word, I would still read my Gideon New Testament Bible. And I remember reading this one scripture that talked about idolatry, and I had started feeling like that because of some of the lyrics we were doing were specifically titled self-glorific, short form for self-glorifying. So there were lyrics that were meant to praise myself, to glorify myself. But then so I was already in that kind of a phase. And then that one night with all the torment, I remember just getting off my bed, falling on my knees, and I got my Gideon New Testament Bible. I had seen there was a salvation prayer. So I got that New Testament and I prayed that prayer. And I think from around midnight, I was on the floor just crying and surrendering to the Lord all the way through to somewhere, I think 02 or something, or 3. I don't remember exactly, but around that. So I was just on the floor, really I was in tears. I was just in tears. And the next morning, I remember waking up, I got my CD bag, which makes me sound odd to say that. Yeah, but yeah, before Spotify, before so much of the flash discs, it was all about MP3 CDs. So I got my entire CD bag that was full of these MP3 CDs that, I had my music on of, the artists that I was enjoying. And I just remember going to the pit and I broke every single one of the CDs and never looked back. So that's how I came to know the Lord, and it's been a beautiful journey since. What does calling mean to you? So calling to me means being called out from the world, called to God, right? So I've been called out of the world, and I've been called into relationship with God, and that relationship is a platform for my personal transformation and an opportunity for partnership with the Lord for the transformation of the world. So for me, calling means come out, come walk with me, partner with me for the transformation of the world. So of course, the fundamental transformation is personal. It is my transformation, and then the transformation of the world. So that's what calling means to me. It's come out and then be with the Lord and walk with the Lord for the transformation of the world. It can mean many things, but that's what it means to me. And is there a difference? That's the next question. Is there a difference between calling and purpose? I think basically we're talking about the same thing. We can interchange those things. What I would also say is that the conversation of purpose is such a grand conversation. It's a big conversation because it has to involve aspects of design. It has to involve aspects of identity, and it definitely involves aspects of calling, right? So, but then when we talk about calling in this context, we and purpose, we're really talking about the same thing. We can interchange those. So when I say that I'm walking in my calling, in essence, I'm saying I'm walking in my purpose, right? Yeah, I think it is reasonable to say that. It is reasonable to say that in this regard. How can one identify their calling? There are different things that I can say here, but maybe let me just share 3 things. And number 1 is you need to become curious. You need to become curious. Questions are gateways to insight. So when you start becoming curious and trying to find out, why was I made? It's a question of why, right? It's a question of purpose. And when you become curious, that desire pulls on, or it places a demand on answers, right? If I'm asking questions, then I start getting some answers. So questions are gateways to insight. So the first thing would be to become curious. Okay, that would be the first thing. The second thing would be for us to, or for you to look back. What does your history reveal to you? Because you've been through some things in your life that reveal something. You know, each one of us has a unique background, and I like to say that even though many times your background might look like your greatest disadvantage, it may actually turn out to be your greatest advantage in the context of purpose or calling. Why? Because in your background you've had a unique experience that enables you to have a certain kind of identification with the unique people, right? Your background has been a school of purpose. It has been a school of formation of your message. What have you been exposed to and gone through, and what kind of message has that formed? Now, what you've been through can form a message that is beautiful and can work to impact people, or it can be something that brings bitterness out of you, and that bitterness can partner with the enemy for the destruction of the world. So the background, however, if surrenders to God, if I look back at where I'm coming from and how God has positioned me at different points of my life, I can begin to draw some lessons and begin to connect some dots that ultimately can point me towards something. So look back and then also look in. By look in, what do I mean? You look at your design. How has God made you, right? Each one of us is designed very uniquely, and all of these things points to how we've been positioned in our world, because God has a purpose, right? And no, let me not get into that. Otherwise, it's going to turn out to be a long video. But you look in terms of your design. I'm a communicator. I'm a gifted communicator, right? And that is part of my design. I'm a thinker. I'm a scribe. I love to write. And all of these things reveal about how God has positioned me to be able to fulfill my purpose, right? So I'm looking in. I'm looking at my gifts. I'm looking at my talents. I'm looking at my passions and inclinations. What do these things reveal to me? What are some things in the world that frustrate me? What are some things in the world that give me the utmost pleasure? You know, so that's me looking in, because all of these things have to do with me. When I look at my gifts, my talents, my personality, inclinations, and passions in alignment and submission to God, they can reveal so much. So look back, look in, and most importantly as well, look up. That is looking at God. What has there been any direct revelation from God? Remember, this is the question about identifying your calling. Has there been a direct revelation from God that speaks into your calling, that speaks into your purpose? If you think about Paul on the road of on the roads to Damascus, it was a direct revelation, a direct calling that came from God. But for other people, again, if you look in scriptures, the journey has been progressive. The revelation of calling has been progressive, right? It did not come in an instant, but it was progressive. I think when I think about Joseph and the different things that he went through, from the dreams that he shared with his brothers or his family and ended up in his persecution, the revelation was progressive, and so there are different ways that God does reveal to us, but it is important for us to look to God and find out what he has said directly, through revelation or even through other people. And also then, I think it's important for us to look forward. What does your dreams and desires, ambitions reveal? What is the God-given dream in you? What did you want to see in the world? Looking forward. So look back, look in, look up, and look forward. I think all of that helps us to come to sort of a holistic approach to purpose discovery or calling. So that would be my answer to that. And of course, I'm trying to compress this as much as I can, because Dora, I do not want your episodes to end up being 4 hours, right? So yeah, I think that's my best efforts there. What are some of the common misconceptions about walking in your calling? I think there are many, but I'll just talk about two. The first misconception that I think that I can talk about here is that the misconception that only pastors are called, or only people serving in the fivefold ministry are called. Because if you think about it, whenever we talk to people and say, we have got a calling you, basically we are referring to them being in the fivefold ministry or doing some pastoral work. Then we refer to that as a calling. But everyone is called. Albeit is that we are called to different domains or different mountains of influence, right? But everyone has a calling because everyone has a purpose, right? So it's just, we are all living for the glory of God, and how we glorify God may look different in terms of the pursuit of calling, but everyone has a calling, right? So it's not just the pastor that is called. It's not just the person in the fivefold ministry that is called. You are called as a teacher, as a doctor, and I think that's one of the misconceptions about calling. Yeah. The second one would be that I think we tend to think that it is easier to pursue things that I desire more than to pursue the calling of God, the purpose of God. And in part, I think that's because we tend to think it is easier for me to live in what I design more than what God has designed. But that is such a great and grave misunderstanding of calling, a grave misunderstanding of purpose. Because the question that I like to ask people is that how can you think and imagine that it is easier for a train to move on the road, a path it was not designed for, than it is for a train to move on the rail, right? And as a matter of fact, one of the fundamental scriptures of my life is Ephesians 2:10. We are God's workmanship, his handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance that we should do. So that for me shapes everything about calling and how beautiful it is to pursue calling, But I think those are the two misconceptions that I would share. Okay, moving on. What are some of the benefits of walking in your calling? Again, there are many things we can talk about, but again, I just restrict myself to two things. And one, I'll piggyback off of what I just said about Ephesians 2:10. One of the benefits of walking in your calling is that you are walking in a path that was prepared. It's not like I'm trying to get off of a road that is already constructed and just insist that even though there are mountains, there's a forest here, I'm going to get my own bulldozers, I'm going to get my own contractors, and we'll make our own road. Right? How difficult is that compared to there's already a pathway here, there's already a road here, prepared, walk in it. And everything that you need is you're gonna find on this path. And I think that's one of the beautiful realizations I've had personally, but also the benefits of walking in your calling. I don't think this the safest place on earth is God. It's at the center of God's purpose. Now that safety can be relative, and what I mean is, even though the safest place on earth is at the center of God's calling or purpose, it doesn't mean the Apostle Paul won't be shipwrecked or won't find himself being beaten. But the difference is that you are at a place that God cares about. There may be persecution that comes from the water because we know that the enemy is fighting God's agenda, right? But it is different in the sense that I'm positioned in a place that God cares about. I'm positioned in a place that God has made provisions for, and that's one of the beautiful things about walking in your calling. Okay, yep. So that is one, and number two would be the fulfillment. We can do many things in life, but ultimately it is purpose that gives us fulfillment. It is walking in your calling that you find fulfillment. And every now and then I think about the paradox of this, because walking in your calling can require so much sacrifice, can require so much dying to yourself, but at the same time it gives you a satisfaction such as you cannot find anywhere. And so those are going to be my two benefits that I'll share with you in terms of walking in your calling. First of all, you are living in alignment with God. You're walking on a path that is prepared. I have confidence that I'm going to find all things pertaining to life and godliness because I'm on a path that was prepared, not on a path that I'm trying to create by myself. And then secondly, I know that I'm going to find fulfillment in doing what I was designed for. Yeah. And so finally, what would be my remarks? Let us pursue God. I think there's so much in God to be found. And do not let the enemy deceive you and I that it is easy to live outside of a path we are made for and choose our own. God is wise and we are not wiser than him. I would rather incline with the scriptures, incline to God, because he knows best, right? Even if I do not see it in the moment, but God always knows best. So those would be my few thoughts as I'm signing out. Thank you so much once again for having me. Please make sure that you subscribe and share this video. And yeah, thank you so much, Nora, for having me. Catch you next time.